Hi everyone, it's Gary Nicholson here at the Mountain Weather Information Service. This is your planning outlook video on Tuesday the 13th of November. In the short term, it's mild southerly winds that will dominate, with some further rain to come, particularly across the western mountains, but all change as we head towards the end of the week and the weekend. As pressure builds from the east, substantially dry conditions will come in, and the outlook then is largely dry well forwards into the later part of November. Temperatures expected to drop as winds turn easterly. Now we often start with a look at temperatures, and we'll do that slightly differently on this occasion. This is a vertical profile of temperature up through the atmosphere. It's a skew-T chart as used in forecasting. And we've got temperature across the bottom. Just for reference, the 0 Celsius isotherm goes diagonally up the chart there. And you've got the height going upwards up the side of the chart in feet and in pressure on the left-hand side, just for reference. Now the red line is temperature, the blue line is dew point, and you can see this is for Saturday. And you can see those two lines are almost together at the bottom of the chart, indicating there's some saturation and the risk of some fog at the lowest levels in the atmosphere. Could just be valley fog, but above that, essentially drier air as the two lines separate, and temperatures actually rising with height. So you're into inversion conditions where temperatures on the hills can be warmer than down on the lower slopes. Once you get above, say around 3,000–4,000 feet, temperatures stabilise and then just begin to lower gradually with height. But it's a slow drop with height, indicating everything is pretty stable compared to what would be an unstable situation where temperatures would drop rapidly with height, as we've seen in some recent days. And basically a profile similar to this will be in evidence through the weekend and onwards into the start of next week, with these stable inversion conditions and the risk of low-level fog and locally some banks of low cloud on the hills, but many of the tops in clear air above any low-level fog and with some excellent visibility in place. Before we get to that though, we've got some more active weather happening, and this is through Wednesday. We've got widespread severe gales across the mountains, especially in the Scottish Highlands, and fronts which are slow moving across the Western Highlands, producing some prolonged falls of rain, just easing a touch as the day goes on, but staying pretty damp much of the day. The rain fading from England and Wales, but windy across all of the hills. Into Thursday, those waving fronts are still in place to the west of the British Isles. We've got a windy day again with a very stable profile that will produce gustiness through passes, through cols and down to lower slopes. So some very powerful winds in places north of major summits. The Cairngorms and the Ben Nevis range particularly see some powerful gusts coming down to those low levels. Largely a dry day. The residual areas of rain may just give patches of rain here and there, mostly western Scotland, and the odd local drizzly spot elsewhere. But for many, it's a dry picture with low cloud breaking up slowly, but some places exposed to that wind from the south, southwest Scotland particularly, staying clagged in, I suspect, much of the day. Now into Friday, pressure is building slowly from the east, still a fairly humid air mass that's in place, so the scope for banks of low-level cloud, fog on lower slopes, in places in some valleys and glens. Essentially a dry day, still rather a windy one, the strongest winds across the far western mountains in Scotland, but with the stable profile still in place, those winds will produce those strong gusts again down to lower slopes. Into the weekend then, and high pressure parked toward the east, a generally southeasterly flow that's in charge. Still a rather blustery pattern. May well be that the winds are not far off gale force in places, and again gusty down to some lower slopes. Essentially a dry story though as we go onwards through the weekend. And not much to choose between the charts for Saturday and Sunday, maybe just turning the wind flow a little bit more toward the east, but it's a dry story overall. The strength of the wind at low levels will be important just in terms of what fog does form. If there are some lighter areas of wind, then mist and fog will form readily overnight. So the main uncertainty into the weekend really is the extent to which fog and low-level cloud hangs around. This chart is off one model just into Saturday morning, and the red colours indicating extensive low-level cloud and fog. It's more western regions of Wales, the Lake District, and across north and northwest Scotland, which look to be in the clear, and you may well have extensive sunshine most of the time here. Elsewhere, it could take a while to get rid of low-level cloud and fog, some on lower slopes, some in the valleys. And just gradually through Saturday, it seems that that cloud will tend to burn off, just across the southeastern highlands though, where the wind flow is coming more directly in off the North Sea. You could find banks of low-level cloud hanging on much of the time, but based on the charts we saw at the start, with the inversion in place, most of the hills should be above that low-level cloud. Now, it may be there's some banks of cloud and fog that form again overnight into Sunday. Looks somewhat less of it as the air is relatively drier, but once again into Sunday it could be those more east and southeastern parts of Scotland and the Pennines that do just see areas of low cloud which hang around. And that's likely to be the ongoing theme into next week as well, with high pressure more or less centred over Scandinavia. With time, that looks as though it's drifting westwards to be centred more toward the north of Britain as the week goes on, so turning that wind flow progressively more to the east, maybe eventually more toward the northeast, which will allow chillier air to get in. I think it's just a progressively colder pattern that tries to take hold, so eventually temperatures dipping back below freezing on the mountains and maybe some frost overnight, much more common as the week goes on. Perhaps a much chillier pattern developing as we run on into the final week or so of November as that wind flow gets ever more toward the northeast. So we're starting to look at the risk of some snow showers and flurries maybe coming in off the North Sea, but western regions staying more commonly dry. Generally small amounts of precipitation, but need to watch any shower bands that get going coming in off the North Sea. And it's a pattern that looks like it's more or less stuck in with us to the end of November and the start of December. That's a chart which shows the anomalies of pressure at middle layers in the atmosphere, and it suggests that high pressure is very much focused towards Iceland and Greenland. Lower pressure is more across Central Europe and into Russia, and all allowing that general east by northeasterly airflow. So it looks like a chilly pattern, perhaps a distinctly cold one, as we run toward the end of the month. So we'll keep an eye on that one and see how things develop. We'll update the video for you again on Friday. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.